Imagine using a system of voting that was established when the government did not trust its citizens to make educated decisions. That is the case with the Electoral College. As constituents and voters, we deserve to be the most vocal part of our elections. All of us should have a say in who our president is. We need to work harder to achieve better voting rights. This issue affects all of us. I have done extensive research on this topic by looking through resources such as the National Archives, National Popular Vote Supporters, and the National Conference on State Legislatures. I'm also an active member with the Democratic Socialists of America, and this is an issue we often discuss. The logic of the Electoral College is a distortion of the democratic election in the United States. Therefore, it should be abolished. The Electoral College has a set of rules. There are problems that occur due to these rules, with solutions that have been offered and future actions to take place based on practicality. The Electoral College is a process in which electors vote for the President of the United States, and it was added to the Constitution upon its creation. At the time of its creation, the popular vote was explicitly rejected because it was believed that regular citizens were not trusted to make wise choices. It is still at work today. According to Alexander Hamilton, this body of electors was a compromise because there was a fear that states such as Massachusetts, New York, and Pennsylvania would dominate the presidency and the election. Each state is allocated Electoral College votes in proportion to the number of its House members, senators, and population. And this number totals to 538. Each elector casts one vote following the general election that ultimately holds the power to choose the president. Electors have the ability to vote against how their state voted in order to keep tyrants out of office. So you can see in this map here the number of electoral votes per state. They obviously differ depending on the size of the population per each state, with some having as much as 55 like California, or as little as 5 like Nebraska, or 4 in Maine. So now that we have looked at the rules of the Electoral College, let us turn our attention to the problems. According to columnist Eric Black, some problems with the Electoral College includes that it violates basic democratic principles and stands in the way of effective electoral reform at the presidential level. There is a problem that allows the loser of the popular vote to win the electoral vote, which does create a mess and confusion, as we saw in the 2000 and 2016 elections, where the winner of the popular vote did not ultimately become the president because they lost the Electoral College votes. Another problem with the Electoral College is that it was enacted at a time when women and African Americans were unable to vote, and has since then not been updated to reflect what our current world looks like. Now that we have looked at the problems of the Electoral College, let us focus on the solutions. My first offer for a solution is to dump the Electoral College altogether and bring in effective election reform. Alternative solutions to the method of election include approval voting, the popular vote, and instant runoff voting. A third solution would be to make the Electoral College at the state level as well. This would even out the playing field and make all elections run exactly the same way. Now that we have looked at the solutions to the Electoral College, let's look at the practicality of change. The practicality of changing the Electoral College may be difficult to execute, per the National Archives. This is because the practicality of change relies on amending the Constitution, which is an arduous process. Practicality of amending the Electoral College depends on the work of voting right advocates, constituents, and elected officials. Finally, it is ultimately down to the voters themselves, with the best practical changes coming from actual votes. And you could use resources such as nationalpopularvote.com to get more information. Now that we have looked at the practicality of changing the Electoral College voting system, let us call our attention to action. The best way to make change in our democracy is to use your voice. Reach out to your elected officials to advocate for the repeal or amending of the Electoral College. The Electoral College is a set rule in the Constitution. There are problems that occur because our democracy has evolved past this system. Solutions have been offered, and future actions need to take place, and they will be based on practicality. As voters, we matter. All of us can use our fundamental rights to make changes. We all have a voice in this system, and the best way to use it is to talk to your elected officials and to vote. As Senator Debbie Stabenow said, democracy is about voting, and it's about a majority vote. And it's time that we started exercising the democratic process.